Man, It's a showdown in southern Tennessee, ready to unfold in a duel with a Coliseum that can only be accompanied in the best way by dirt. Where the best of the WORC series sling around the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway tonight as we welcome you to the 2021 WORC Dirt Nationals here on the KBueno Racing Network, of course, from the Bristol Motor Speedway. Very glad we are to welcome you to our coverage and wishing you a happy iRacing Day, May 15th, where we get to have fun with some legend cars and go for some cash prizes as well. And alongside Francisco Bacchiao in the booth, who will join us very shortly, my name is Kenneth Bueno. And really, this isn't the first time we've covered a dirt series, or rather a dirt series, but also a dirt event by a WORC and their league themselves. In fact, if you watched a little bit earlier back in 2021, we covered the WORC Chili Bowl Nationals, or at least in 2020 we covered the WORC Chili Bowl Nationals a little bit ago, and we had a lot of fun with that event. We certainly had a different showing out with the Chili Bowl arena, and obviously having the different cars with the dirt midgets. It was the first time we had covered on the KBueno Racing Network with those cars, and tonight it folds with a brand new different combo. The newly released Bristol Dirt configuration, released in March of this year on the iRacing platform, and of course with the addition of the Legends Dirt vehicles. We'll be whipping them around here for this entire race. And to bring in now Francisco Bacchiao in the booth, of course, got our intro underway, but now we end up, last night we had our coverage with the CRL Cup Series. They had their all-star event right here at this very track, though. They had more powerful cars, they had heavier cars, they had an entirely different combo, if you will. And now tonight we get to have a little fun with cars that are smaller, less powerful, these legend cars that are surely a lot of fun to whip around this track, and I think pretty surely we're going to see a lot of fun coming out of tonight.
To be here, and tonight is a first for many things, and for one, it's not new for us to cover the Dirt Series. We've covered the AB Outdoors Quick Time Series, which is a 410 sprint car series. We've covered the WORC Chili Bowl Nationals, which I heard you mention that we covered back in January. And last night with the All-Star Race in CRL with the NASCAR Cup Series machines. Tonight, though, it's the first time in the Legends cars that they'll be running here, and we'll be doing the full format of the heat races and the consolations, and before moving into our main race tonight. And Kenneth, I have no idea what to expect with these Legends cars. I hear there are handful. I hear that it's fun to drive, and I just can't wait to see it put on display.
It definitely will be a lot of fun to put on display. And just like last night, we'll cover over the semi-small history that encompasses this Bristol dirt configuration. And it started back all the way in June of 2000, where the Habitample Dirt National Series made its way with the dirt late models in June, of course, of 2000 to 2001. Here at this configuration, slap on the dirt to Bristol Motor Speedway, then transform to 2021 in the spring, where the Return of the Dirt Coliseum ends up with the NASCAR Truck Series and the NASCAR Cup Series as well. So we've had a lot of history to behold here at this very racetrack, and of course we're going to be making a lot more in the sim and in real life when NASCAR continues to run there. World of Outlaws also begins to run there as well. We got a different look of where we are in the virtual world, though, get a bit of more information as to where we are. And I know this is necessarily the dirt configuration, but this is still, frankly, the Bristol Motor Speedway down in Bristol, Tennessee. 0.5 miler for, of course, 4 turns, 26 to 30 degrees out in the corners, with about 6 to 10 degrees out on the straightaways. So, of course, Bristol Motor Speedway still holds that challenge. I believe the banking is a little less because there is a dirt surface, but nonetheless, we're going to have that ready to go for you in no time. We had our drivers take over to the track for heat number 1. This will be one of the 5 10-lap events. We did have our pole sitter come over a little bit earlier. That was, I believe it was Jamie Massey, the fastest time out of them all. He wins the Random Design Paint Services Pole Sitter Award. Francisco, we're going to be seeing, frankly, a different style of racing than we were probably all accustomed to here on the KBueno Racing Network. We saw sprint cars on many dirt tracks. We saw the Cup cars at Bristol Dirt. And now with these legend cars, how do you think this will fare out in this case?
I have no predictions for what's going to happen here. I mean, I've never seen Legends cars race on the dirt before, so out of me, I'm not sure I can really give a good, accurate depiction as to what we'll see. But one thing I do know is that we'll see these guys going all out, trying to go and get themselves into the top 3, because that's the positions you have to be in order to move on to the main.
And 16 drivers will make the features, so we'll have 5 heat races, and 3 drivers will advance in each of the heats, so that will add up to 15. And of course, the last remaining drivers that do not make it, they will end up in a B main, where the only singular driver, the first driver who wins that race, they will advance to the feature. We'll have total 16 drivers, and then we'll go sling on for the 75-lap feature. There will be cautions in that feature. There will be cautions in the consolation races, but there will be no cautions here. So if you slip up here at the Bristol Dirt Motor Speedway for these 10-lap heats, then you're pretty much all in a boat by yourself. You just have to kind of roll with the punches as we move forward. So this will be the grid. Jamie Massey will be out in front, followed by Joe Bergie, Brayson Collins, Nehwin Flores in the 888, followed by Henry Clappert, Ryan Martin to 6, Dominic Howe 7th, Josh Patterson 8th, the 56 of Benjamin Richards will be 9th, and that will be the final driver in this group that will end up here on this heat. So we'll be waiting for the pace truck to make its way down. I believe it already has, so we'll be ready to take the green flag for the first of 5 heat races here from the Bristol Dirt Nationals. Up and away we go. Jamie Massey leads the way.
And a little bit of contact there for that second position as they begin to get the cars sideways. And what you'll notice here that is different from most series that we see on dirt, they're going to be pretty close together for most of the event here tonight. Don't expect too much of stretching between positions. They see a little bit of contact there for the 5th position as the top 4 have spread away.
Couple of guys 3 wide near the rear. That's Ryan Martin, Henry Clapper, and obviously the likes of Dominic Howe. As Clapper gets out of shape, he gets over to the apron. He'll be able to save it as they run 3 wide. And pretty much everybody's scrapping for as much position as they can. And it is hard to really get away from anybody at this racetrack. And now Bergie with contact up to the wall. He'll make a contact and almost go around. Indeed, he will. Big hit, though, behind him. I believe that might have been Nehwin Flores, who also goes around. Dominic Howe almost gets a piece of it. Benjamin Richards. And meanwhile, the battle up front has separated. Jamie Massey ahead of Brayson Collins to lap 3.
That just all transpired rather quickly there, Kenneth. I mean, we saw like 6 cars under a blanket, and just like that, it all dissolved very, very quickly. These guys racing very aggressively to try and get into the transfer spot. But speaking transfer positions, right now it's being held by Josh Patterson, and we've seen him race on asphalt and dirt before. And as we're about halfway through this first heat, he has to hold off that number 9 of Ryan Martin right behind him.
And the Bullet Bill out of East Greenville, Pennsylvania, trying to capture that spot over Ryan Martin. And the gap is not too large, but with the way Patterson just smacked that wall there, I figured it's going to be way easier for guys like Martin and Clapper to start to catch up, put a nice fight in for this final transfer spot. Of course, if they don't make it into the feature through the heat, it won't necessarily be the end of the world. They can still fight their way in through the Consi, but I reckon, Francisco, with the way we saw the NB Outdoors Series handle themselves on most tracks, you don't really want to be in that situation. But Patterson gets hit. I believe that was one of the lap cars. That was the 56 of Benjamin Richards, and all of a sudden, Patterson loses out on the final transfer spot and will toss it to Ryan Martin.
And Patterson's not happy in the race chat right now. We saw that just unfold just as we were going to talk about the leaders, and it went out of shot there, but we were able to catch just the last bit of it. Josh Patterson got hit by one of those lap cars that had come off the wall, and now it's Clapper and Martin battling for that transfer spot. Clapper, another Florida native, Kenneth, and he has 3 laps before he can try to make this move. If not, it's going to be on to the B main.
And he's got to work that bottom, but what's even riskier about running the bottoms of these cars is that if you even touch the apron slightly, your car will go a 360 spin. And for Clapper, he definitely wants to keep himself above that apron, and he's making that inside work. Although Ryan Martin is getting that run off the corner, he does not have that much time. At about 2 laps left, Ryan Martin will try to hold on to P3, and Jamie Massey will look forward to the white flag. Final lap in the first heat of action for the first 10 laps of the Bristol Dirt Nationals. So Massey will come around, Brayson Collins, about 1.5 seconds, a little bit more and change to the white flag here in this heat. Ryan Martin still in a nice battle, though, with Henry Clapper as they head back to turn 1.
And right now, they're still battling for that spot, and it's coming down to the final lap. Who's going to get it? Clapper on the inside, the shorter way around. Martin trying to fend off on the high side. It's going to come down to a dive bomb into this corner. He's going to try and slide up in front of him as Massey wins the race in contact with Clapper making it in with that last lap move as Ryan Martin goes tumbling down the front straightaway, and he does not cross the finish line.
He is not even close to the start-finish line. He'll even lose that to 5th and maybe 6th, 7th as Bergie goes by. Martin will cap himself at 6th. That was Patterson and Dominic Howe. Bergie almost slipped by. He ends up in 7th. But Jamie Massey, your winner in the first heat of action. So him, Brayson Collins, and Henry Clapper will be the first 3 to advance to the feature. They won't have to worry about the consolation races. And just as quickly as we get to that, we are already to our second heat of the evening, and that will begin with the 009. Keith Hackney, his machine, will start us off. Howie Briss will be alongside him, followed by James East. Nestor Erlin, the driver from Finland, one of the international drivers we're seeing here tonight. Brady Cox behind him in the top 5. Then followed by Nolan Cooper, Sean Giroux, and Tyler Watts. 8 drivers instead of 9 from the first heat. But again, we'll still have our same rules apply. 3 drivers will make it in. So I guess now, Francisco, we've had our first heat. We saw some of the chaos. Now with a different collection of drivers, we have to restart and probably have to take a moment to catch our breath before we go right back to action.
Yeah, and that was an exciting first heat that we had there. A lot of crazy actions for that transfer spot. And if the rest of the night is like this, then I lift this drink and toast to what we have present for us in the booth and the safety of this booth, I might want to add, because these guys are going to be all over this racetrack, all over one another, trying to get all that they can.
As they come around, we'll take 2-2 green here from Bristol. And as we note, sun is going to start to set, so the temperatures are going to start to cool down here. We'll take a look at the weather before we get going in this second heat. Air temp of about 80 degrees. Winds over to the south-southwest at about 2 miles per hour. No humidity, no fog. It is a partly cloudy afternoon, or should we say evening now that it'll roll into the nighttime. We'll have the lights start to flicker on here at Bristol in the last great Coliseum by the time we get to our 75 lap feature. Again, no cautions like we saw in the first heat, so if anybody gets into an incident, we will have ourselves a ball, and that person will, or that driver will have to kind of run for himself, trying to catch up as many positions as he possibly can. Calhoun, Georgia's Keith Hackney will be the first one to the green flag. Pace truck will be off, and we're underway for the second heat of the night.
Look at the top 2 already gone from the rest of the field, much like what we saw in that first heat. And immediately we see from 3rd on back, it's a little bit more stacked for position as there we comes around to complete the first lap.
Nestor Erlins trying to duck in for third. That's Nolan Cooper in the 65 up top. Nestor Erlins, the Finnish driver, will end up in that third spot. It's just a matter of how long he can hold it for 8 laps. And here, Francisco, you got to think that even when we covered last Friday's, or at least last night's CRL Cup Series All-Star race at this very track, you had faster cars. You were setting at least 2 seconds better on the lap counter, or the lap timer rather, but it still takes a little while to get around this track. It feels a lot slower than it would on the asphalt side, because you know you can go a lot faster on the asphalt surface, but then when you go to the dirt, you know you're gonna have to whip the car around, and it won't be too easy, and the laps certainly take a while. There's Nolan Cooper spinning himself around. He'll merge quickly and safely back to the race surface. He'll lose out on third, though. That battle with Nestor Erlins settles out.
Yeah, Nestor Erlins right now in the final transfer spot. And if you have to think about this, you mentioned he was international from Finland. Right now, it's way past 2 in the morning in Finland, so you have to think this is a grind by that number 6 to get out here and do something good. And there you see a spin in the back. The 26 goes around while he was battling for that 4th spot, so that's Brady Cox, and unfortunately, that's probably going to do him in for this heat.
Most likely do him in. The gap between Nestor Erlins and James East behind him is a solid second, but we could see James East start to chip in that gap. We still have about 5 laps left to go, and speaking of 5 laps left to go, Keith Hackney will be the first driver to reach that mark. And again, we may see another dominant run here in the heat for a driver to get in. But for drivers like Howie Briss and Nestor Erlins, they don't necessarily want to fight for the lead. If you're Howie Briss, you're probably going to want to ride in second because you know you're going to advance to the feature. I know if you win, you'll get the best position out of everybody from this heat in the feature, but you know you're going to make it regardless of whether you win the heat or not, as long as you just finish in the top 3. And for Howie Briss, I'm sure that's what he's got to thinking, that Keith Hackney, although he's kind of far out, it doesn't need to be worth chasing, considering they both will make it to the end. Nestor Erlins probably hoping that he can keep his gap over James East in the meantime with about 4 laps to go.
Yeah, and as they come across the line, it's 3 now, and Hackney, much like we saw Jamie Massey do in that first heat, he's running away with it, building out to a solid lead. And I don't think this will persist when we go into the main race, because everybody will be bunched up together. The 16 best will be put together on the racetrack, and that'll definitely put a testament to, they know that's going to be the important race, the one for the money. So I think right now everyone's just sort of taking it easy if you have the position that you need to be in order to advance, so that you know that you're good to go into the main race. So as we're coming around to the final lap in this heat, it looks as though, barring any major mistakes, I think Nestor Erlins has got this position. And
you ride on board with Nestor Erlins as they come to the white flag here. You just see how little you can see in front of you because of that small windshield that comes with these legend cars. And at least Nestor Erlins trying to fend off James East. The gap has slowed down a little bit, but coming off turn 4, it'll be Keith Hackney, the 009, comes from the pole in Heat 2 to win the second heat. Howie Briss will finish second, and Nestor Erlins will hold on for third. He'll be the final driver to cross the finish line that will lock themselves into the feature race. James East, Sean Garou, Brady Cox, Tyler Watts, and Nolan Cooper. Some of them more than 1 lap down. They will have to exit to the LCQ and the Consi races in order to try and make the feature event here. So we're having a very similar format to what we saw in the AMB Outdoors Quick Time Sprint Car Series, where we just have very quick heats. It ends up it's not very long, and then all of a sudden we get them done, and then we move right on to the third heat. And as for the third heat of the evening, Calvin Brooks will be the first driver to lead them off, followed by Aaron Trotter. Christian Visconti will be third, and Paul Granada will be in the outside of row 2, followed by Joshua Pack. Jay Mulder, the Blue Jay, will start in 6th. Brent Gummo will be 7th, and Ben Porch will be 8th. So again, another 8-car field for this third heat.
And as where everybody begins to grid up, we'll see who makes it out of this heat. And those 2 heats, Kenneth, I just want to say they've been exciting to watch from up here. A lot of action. These guys are just showing how tough it is to drive these cars on the dirt. It's not a car that's particularly made for it. And you mentioned it right there at the end with Nestor Erlins, that the visibility is tough. But one thing that you can do on iRacing is you can change the driver height on your black box. You can go over to that particular page and change the driver height and sort of lower it if it helps you have a little bit more of forward visibility.
That definitely could help. One of the small adjustments that comes with iRacing, and knowing with the fixed setups we have here tonight, they can't do much in terms of setups. on this race. So a lot of them using the baseline setup. There's only about 2 setups that come here with the Dirt Legend cars, at least as far as I'm concerned to note. They are the baseline setup and then the Chili Bowl setup, which obviously you're not going to be running at the Chili Bowl. That track's a lot shorter than Bristol Motor Speedway, so you're not going to be running that type of setup here.
And indoors.
Exactly. Anywhere else, really, you'll be running it straight with that short track of the Chili Bowl. So most of the drivers electing for that baseline dirt setup that pretty much works around every track that iRacing official Dirt Legends goes to. One of them being Lanier, some other being Limaland. There's a couple others that are on the free side of things on the iRacing service that could go to those needs. But nonetheless, we're ready to rack things up for our third heat of the evening. Sun continues to set over virtual Bristol, Tennessee, and Calvin Brooks with the first one to lead them off. Aaron Trotter will also follow suit as well. And we'll see how things fare. We've seen a lot of separation between the top 3. It's mostly been a nice battle for third on back. Not much contention for first or second. We'll see if that changes here coming to this third heat. Pace truck makes its way down to the left. Calvin Brooks will be on the gas a little late. Aaron Trotter with a better start. We're back under green for the third heat. Already 3 wide to turn 1.
Your pole sitter having trouble going. I'm not sure if the 46 went a little bit earlier than he was supposed to. We'll see what the admins have to say about that. But look at this. Cars all over the track trying to battle for that spot as Paul Granada moves his way down to 4th. As we actually have a spinner on that inside. He got on that apron like you were talking about, Kenneth.
Now one driver goes straight to the pit road attenuator. The one who had spun a little bit earlier, I think might have been Brent Gummo there, who got around. There was no other drivers I saw that ended up spinning. There's another one down there as well. And that was Granada that got right into the wall, actually. And almost got into the wall, really, as a couple drivers try to fend off. But here's a battle, though, for the heat lead, rather. That's Christian Visconti, the driver out of Gulliford, Connecticut, trying to make something work, but he'll get the apron, almost spin the car around. A nice save, but he'll stay to third. Question is, how long can he fend off Paul Granada and Joshua Packer were behind him?
He got a little bit eager. He was trying to get onto the throttle, roll that bottom, try to go for that position, but it got a little bit out of shape for him, and now he needs to settle down and realize that he's still in the transfer spot, and he needs to hold on to it if he wants to make it into the heat or into the main event, because that's the one where the payout is, not this one.
So he stabilizes himself as Paul Granada will try to chase him down for the moment. Aaron Trotter, though, the great start off of the initial green flag run. He'll catch lap 5 in the heat lead over Calvin Brooks. These two looking to stay in the heat lead. I think that was probably the most chaotic start we've seen out of any of the heats so far this evening, but it's probably fiddled out quicker than we expected. We probably saw it to be a lot longer, but some of the mistakes in the pack forced some drivers to be out on their way. A couple drivers, couple laps down. That's Ben Porsche and Brent Gummo. They are both down pit road. The last driver on track right now is 6th place Jay Mulder, who is probably right now, with the amount of laps left, looking forward to that Consi race to get in. But so far, Aaron Trotter continues to lead with about 5 laps to go.
And Brooks is sort of trying to chip away into that lead of his, trying to see if he can go in there and make an interesting finish out of this, per se, because they've built a decent enough gap to the cars behind to where they can battle for this lead. But I'm not sure that that's going to exactly go into fruition here, with Brooks sort of maintaining 6/10 behind your race leader, as you see Aaron Trotter with clean racetrack in front of him, no worries out from his rearview mirror, trying to make it into the main event here tonight.
It's going to be even worse by the time they get to the feature, because they're going to have 16 cars on the track at once. Well, we have pretty much half of that right now in this heat alone. Right now, Calvin Brooks, though, slowly chipping in that gap, so maybe we could see a battle for the heat lead coming in the final laps, as Aaron Trotter will come across the line for 2 laps to go in this heat. Visconti currently in control of that 3rd position. Paul Granada has not chipped in the gap whatsoever, so we may see it stay the same. Everybody else mostly separated from here on out. So I'm guessing, Francisco, we're seeing most of a trend. It gets chaotic to start while everyone's packed in, and then going for the first couple laps, there's some drivers who make mistakes, some drivers who go around, and then all of a sudden, all 3 of the top 3 that end up in the heat will comfortably transition to the feature. Maybe not so comfortably. Calvin Brooks, though, with one more chance to turn 3 for the final time.
Does he go for it? That's the question. Does he try to go for this heat win? He's going to look to the inside, but it won't be enough.
Oh, they both go around. Who will win it? It will be Visconti to the line. Oh, my goodness. And who gets in for 3rd? Granada. Granada gets in second. Brooks able to survive for third.
Wow.
And Aaron Trotter fell to 6th on that spin in the final lap, so he will have to go immediately to the consi. And I believe, wow, unbelievable way to settle that final heat. And I believe we have a warm-up now, 2 minutes before we get started. Unbelievable finish.
I think that's deserving of another look, Kenneth. I'm in shock that happened. I mean, they were battling for a heat win. I thought they would be a little bit more tame than that, knowing that they both had positions to make it into the main event. And you saw Brooks was closing the gap those last 3 or 4 laps. And right here, he knew he had one more opportunity and tried to go for it. And you can't really blame him for doing so. But right here, a little bit loose by the 46. The 59 had a great run, and they just both have a little similar spin. They really mirrored each other, and then right there getting back on the gas, the 46 had trouble, and Brooks was able to go by. But how about Visconti sneaks by both of them to take the heat win?
Unbelievable run by Visconti, and then all of a sudden, Paul Granada snakes in the final lap of this race. Take a look from the front cone. You see both of them go around in front, and I'm pretty sure if you're Paul Granada in this situation, you're probably already thinking, okay, I'm on the way to the consi. And then you see the top 2 leader spin. You see that as an opportunity. A door wide open, and Granada gets into second, so he's already locked into the feature race, and not a worry in sight. I think the biggest worry, though, will stand for Aaron Trotter. Dominated that entire heat, and will have to settle for 6th at the line, and he's going to be as part of the consolation races. So that must be very heartbreaking for him, as now drivers will stand into their warm-up session. So now, Francisco, what do we have to look forward to when we get to the consolation races? Do we see a lot more tension build up from some of the heats?
I think we'll see it go to another level. I mean, we just saw what they were willing to do for a heat win when they both had the positions. Now, one person, I believe, will advance. If I'm correct here, one person will go in, so they need to go all the way to the top of the field if they want to advance.
And they really have to go in, and especially with the amount of drivers we already have locked in to the feature event, we're going to have a good amount of scrappling, going for every single position they can, and try to fight as tough as nails if they want to get into the feature. 75 laps. And of course, they want the $50 cash prize to win the entire event. They just need to give themselves a shot before they do so. And as drivers are warming up right now, just about to finish our warm-up session, and to remind everybody watching on the YouTube stream that if you want to join the conversation with us up in the KBRN booth, you can indeed do so by using hashtag AskKBRN. You can put your question followed by that hashtag. We'll be sure to answer it as soon as you send it, and to the best of our abilities. That is hashtag AskKBRN for anything you want to ask. We have Keith Hackney at the top of the board, Francisco. I think we may have some drivers who are already comfortable with the way they've adjusted to these legend cars, and we may end up seeing those drivers having a lot of fun once we get to the actual feature race themselves. But we're ready to kick off the last chance qualifiers.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what we got in store for us, to see what's left of this evening. But actually, I think right now we're heading straight to the feature.
Okay, well, I guess nobody's consolation. Nobody's going in that consolation race. We'll have more, it seems as though more than 16 drivers. We're going to have all 20. We're going to have all 25. Okay, so I was thinking 16 due to the way the heats and the mains were organized, but it seems as though they've skipped everything here. So that means that we're just going straight to a feature with a lot more cars on the grid than we anticipated. I guess if we talked about tensions building up, if we talked about anticipation, this is probably going to take it to an entirely new level. But we'll go over the grid just before we get started. It'll be Jamie Massey at the head of this field. Keith Hackney with the 009 will be in the outside of row number 1. Christian Visconti, one of the heat winners, will be in the 3rd place position, followed by the Outlaw, Brayson Collins, in your top row 4. Howie Briss will cap off the top 5 on the grid, followed by Paul Granada, and then goes the 34 of Henry Clapper, the 6th, the Finnish driver Nestor Erlins, Calvin Brooks in the 9th spot, and Dominic Howe to the end of the top 10.
I'm having trouble looking at the field through my end, Kenneth. My apologies.
All right, well, we'll go through the rest of the field as follows. James Eats 11, Joshua Pack to 12th, Josh Patterson 13th, Sean Garou into 14th, Jay Mulder ends up in the top 15, followed by Ryan Martin, Brady Cox, Aaron Trotter, and the 19th place will be Joe Bergie, Tyler Watts, and Ben Porsche will be to 21st. Nguyen Flores, Nolan Cooper, Brent Gummo, and Benjamin Richards, all 25 cars here for this feature. And one thing we probably missed, Francisco, for a while. It's been a
I
while
did.
since we've done it. AMB Outdoors Quick Time Sprint Car Series. We had our 3-wide salute. Each and every night we covered that series, and tonight we do the same, saluting all the fans across the world watching right here on the KBueno Racing Network, and for all participating tonight. This is the WORC Bristol Dirt Nationals, and this is all for you.
I miss this beautiful sight, Kenneth. It's been a while since I've seen these guys get alongside one another and put the show on for the fans before they get going for the feature race. It was one of the very low-key aspects of dirt racing that just makes you enjoy it all the more, because they appreciate their fans every bit. They make sure that they deliver for them, because they're the reason this is able to happen. Unfortunately, on my end, I still have the grandstands with COVID mode. Nobody's in the grandstands, but I know I see a lot of fans out there having a good time in the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway. The pace truck pulls its way into pit road, and we're getting ready to go 75 laps at Bristol, and we're on the green in the WORC Bristol Dirt National.
The Dirt Nationals are underway. Quick start by everybody in this field as they go 2 by 2 out of turn 2 to the back straightaway. Side by side, though, for the race lead. Keith Hackney and the 2 of Jamie Massey
Yellow.
try to fend through, and a yellow flag comes out immediately after we get started. Must have been a big cause of concern to the rear of the field, and it might have involved the 34 of Henry Clappert. Saw him a little bit slow on the racetrack. Joe Bergie down pit road. I believe he may have started there. But it may have been an incident here between these two coming to the first couple corners of this race. So we'll try to take a look and see exactly where this began here. We'll take a look at our replay. This is Henry Clappert in the middle of the field. And again, we saw some of those mishaps in the heat, Francisco. And from there, Clappert just got a shove. Just made the tap as he was washing up the track, and around he went.
Yeah, it looked like he was battling, I want to say it was Bliss there for position, and might have gotten a little tail loose, and as he corrects the car, he just happened to come down a little bit right into the path of Henry Clappert, who had nowhere to go, as he wasn't thinking that was going to happen. You see right there, as he corrects that car, he just comes down the track a little bit and makes contact with Henry Clappert. Doesn't appear to be too much damage on that number 34, but he should be at least able to keep the car on the racetrack. We're not sure exactly how much damage with the damage model on these cars as that is, so at least he's still on the racetrack at the moment, I believe, and he's got a long night in front of him.
And so Clappert ends up without any sort of large damage. So the good news for him is that he'll be able to continue on without any sort of troubles. Question by Trey Shuttlesworth in the YouTube chat. He asked, are they using the Dirt Legends cards tonight? Indeed, they are. So these are, your eyes are not deceiving you. These are not the Asphalt Legend cars on the iRacing service. These are the Legend Dirt cars, which I don't think many people see or use on the service, at least in my experience as a dirt novice, I would call myself. I don't necessarily see many Dirt Legend sessions. Not many people put them up with the sessions, but these cars certainly are a handful of their own. They're a lot of fun to whip around this Bristol Motor Speedway. I've had the privilege to be in a hosted session a couple months back doing this kind of combo when Bristol Dirt came out in March. And it certainly is a lot of fun in the packs, but as soon as you make a mistake, I don't think you want to be in that situation. And it could turn from a smile to a frown in a matter of seconds, especially when drivers come piling into you. But the good news here, Francisco, nobody got piled into so far. Everybody's so far clean, but it's expecting that nice battle between Keith Hackney and Jamie Massey. These two were side by side before we had that yellow come out.
Yeah, it's going to be a good show that these guys are going to put on for us, as they're definitely two of the fastest cars we see out here. The lights are still on the pace track, so I think we have at least one more lap to go around before we take the green flag. But now, how was that event that you said you did with these cars back in March?
It was interesting, and especially I think with the same issue that I mentioned a little bit earlier in the heats, the fact that unless you change the ride height of your actual car in iRacing, you can't really see too much in front of you when you're in the banking itself. Of course, on the straightaways you can see everything, but when you go in the banking, it's a lot harder to even fathom where the other drivers are in front of you, how far they are, and or if there are any incidents to watch for as you come off the corner. But nonetheless, it's a lot of fun. You stay full throttle. You have to sling the cars around, and especially with the way these Legends cars are, since they're so underpowered, you can easily get a hand of them, and you can easily put them in packs, and they will run fairly smoothly unless somebody makes a small mistake, which has happened a lot on the apron. That's where the car can get very spun around, and it's very unstable. We'll have a single file restart this time. It'll come to lap 7 of 75. Pace truck will make its way down. Keith Hackney leads us back to the green flag.
A solid start there, and you saw them all go to the wall so they can straighten out their exit and have a straight shot across that front straightaway as they get up to speed. And they're already up to speed, if you ask me, because they just have such a low speed, and they have a lot of turn through these corners that they're able to just more or less maintain the same speed. But right now you see the top 5 more or less equally spread out, the top 2 getting away fairly well, the same top 2 that we had at the start of this race. You see Hackney there leading from Massey. Collins has moved his way into that 3rd spot, and the rest of the field following suit.
And Jamie Massey not as equalized to the leader as he was, but the showstopper, as they call him on the racetrack. He currently rides the number 2 car in P number 2 before he's in front of the Outlaw. Brayson Collins, a man who pretty much assigned this entire event from the WORC series. He's on a racetrack as himself, and we saw him in the Chili Bowl not too long ago when we covered their WORC Chili Bowl Nationals in January. So good to see him back on the track. And Visconti coming back from what was a chaotic 3rd heat, and he's already fairly quickly on the racetrack. But not many packs here as Paul Granata actually gets way out of shape. He's able to save it. I think the only pack Francisco lays around this group, but not many, as Paul Granata is having a very hard time with this car. He's going to go straight to pit road as caution comes out now.
Yeah, the yellow flag comes out, and I'd be surprised if it was called for that incident right there, Kenneth. It looked like he had that car saved, and he took it down pit road, and it was not an admin caution for our viewers. Just to clarify, it was a iRacing caution. The iRacing service threw it there, and he was definitely well off the track, so I'm not entirely sold on the fact that it was that. Oh no, and it definitely was not that. It was the 56 way in the back of the field, and he was having his own problems, and he just flipped on entering turn 3.
And we saw it. I was going to look at it as you're looking at the replay. 56 gets loose off the corner, overcorrects it, moves it back up to the wall, and the wall just sends him on in the air, and then he goes tumbling over, and then finally decides to get out. He tows to the pits immediately. I think that's why we didn't see it the first time around. And take a look at it once more. He was riding near the rear of the field when this happened, so there was nobody to give him sort of help. And then goes up and over, tumbling over 5 times before coming to a rest on all 4s, and then immediately towing on the racetrack. It's not a good sight for Benjamin Richards to start this race, and for many, not a good start to this, as they don't want to see yellows continue to wave here every now and then. I think for Hackney, it's just even more opportunities for Jamie Massey to equalize and possibly take the race lead away, but already very quick yellows in the first 13 laps of this race.
Yeah, and another thing is that caution laps tonight do count, so the lap count will continue to flicker one more lap every time they cross the start-finish line, despite being behind that pace truck. So that's going to play into the strategy that these guys are going to try and play out here through tonight, because normally in the dirt series, the yellow flags do not have caution laps counting, and it's just 75, and it would be like, for example, 75 laps of green flag racing. But no, tonight the pace car, when it's out, the caution laps will count towards the race total. So that's going to impact how these guys race. And a quick update that we have lost Aaron Trotter in this race.
Very sad. Unfortunate for Aaron Trotter, driver we saw dominate the heat before losing it out in the final corner. He was going to make the race anyway. We were concerned about whether he was going to have to fight his way through the Contis, but Contis got skipped. He made the race, but he ends up going straight to the garage. He is 6 laps down currently. I think the only driver that only completed about 1 lap was Tyler Watson, the 30. He is 13 laps down. Those are the 2 drivers that currently stand as DNFs. Benjamin Richards, who went over and over, he is still on pit road. He is 5 laps down now, but he is a driver that did not pull it behind the garage, so he is not necessarily over just yet. So as we move through, go ahead.
I was just going to point out that I believe we're moving now into the 1 to green, and it looks like we're having a double file restart this time, so that's different from what we saw in the last restart, so that's going to make things interesting here.
I guess officials deemed that it may be more exciting to have a double file restart. We saw single file go fairly well, but we'll see how double file goes as well. I think we may see that rule be implemented if we get quick yellows in the first 5 laps. I think we saw the same over in a handful of other series, even if it's not on dirt, but nonetheless, with Keith Hackney not on the top side, And will that change his momentum going to the green flag? We'll just have to find out. Pace car will come down, and a quick start by Keith Hackney, but an even better start by Jamie Massey. Right to the green flag they go to lap number 16. Massey with a head out front to turn 1.
Hackney has the bottom, though, and he's going to make it work, trying to slide up in front of him, and he takes the position right back, but watch out for Massey to try and make a move into 3. It was a troubled start for the 009, but he was able to recover, and he stays in the race lead. So that bottom is a little bit tricky, but if you can make it work through 1 and 2, you're able to keep the position. And we see Melee in the back of the field, these guys all over the track, and look at this hornet's nest that they're in.
Look at this pack from about 10th on behind. There's the 9 of Ryan Martin trying to fend off Ben Porsche. There's the 888 machine of Nahwin Flores and the 65, Nelwyn Cooper, James East. All of these drivers in a large pack, none of them having any sort of contact. Look at Nestor Erlin's trying to fend himself to the bottom. He's going to lose a lot of momentum on that apron and split it 3 wide. They'll go.
And you got to give the driver that 6 credit. It's almost 3 in the morning at his time because he is in Finland. We actually have a couple cars look like they were spinning towards the inside of the racetrack, and they may have collected it. As actually, no, the 61 is stopped on the inside, bringing out another caution flag.
Caution waves once more here, and it is with the 61 of Ben Porsche, or Porsche, rather, in the 61. He went around. We saw him almost tail end sideways in the middle of that pack. We'll try to take a replay as we saw and we fared as we were looking at Nestor Erlins. This was contact off the corner. This is with the 102. It seemed as though it was Joshua Pack that he got into. Take a look here. The 61 rolls off the corner. I think gets very loose, rolls it down the track, and then collects there with the 102. The 102 able to kind of push him back straight, but the 61's already to a dead halt by that moment. And then iRacing deems it, of course, on the racing surface. That is a yellow flag. So I don't think this will be too harmful of an issue, Francisco. I think this is similar to what we saw with Henry Clapper, just a small ding, but probably nothing large as you see the onboard hit with the 61.
Yeah, he didn't hit that wall, fortunately. The contact he did make was with another car, so light damage to the 61, but nothing detrimental, I believe, to his race. So I do want to quickly go over a little bit of what the prizes are for tonight's race. I don't believe we were able to get too much into detail, but to inform everybody who's watching our race tonight, the winner of tonight's race will receive, I believe, $50. So that win prize money is going to be very much up there, and I believe second place gets somewhere in the $25 range, and I believe third place will take away $15. And the Hard Charger Award, for those who aren't too sure what that is, the Hard Charger is the person who gains the most positions throughout this race tonight will walk away with $11.95 to be able to buy any iRacing content.
Well, maybe they could use that $11.95, buy the new NASCAR Next Gens that are already out if they don't have them already. But they could also get some of the other cars, maybe some smaller tracks. I know that most are $14.95, but even then, some can pay the difference. But $50 though for the winner, that is going to be very big. Again, we had large prizes for the Chili Bowl Nationals earlier this year, and we saw just how chaotic that racing was. I mean, you're looking at, Francisco, a way bigger track, of course, smaller cars, less power. They're a lot easier to handle versus the Chili Bowl, which had a smaller track. It was harder to navigate in traffic, and of course, you had about 900 horsepower dirt midgets right in between your hands, or the palm of your hands, with the wheels. So very different challenge this is indeed. And not to say that driving these things isn't hard in its own right, especially if you're in the middle of the field, but just to note some of the different challenges that WORC has taken in terms of these nationals certainly brings a lot of fun. I think the drivers enjoy it as well.
Yeah, and they do this because they know it offers different challenges. There's no car that's easier to drive than another per se, but it has its own unique challenges, and that applies to the 3 different NASCAR machines. It applies to IndyCar, between the IndyCars and the IndyCar Lights. It also applies to Formula One with the F1, F2, and F3 cars. It applies to the different dirt variant of cars as well. Each has its own unique characteristic towards how you're supposed to drive it and how you're supposed to make it go fast. And one's not easier to drive than another. It just has its own challenge, and the best drivers will always rise to the occasion. And right now we're getting ready to go back under green. Hackney leading Massey, and he gets a little bit of a better start this time. No challenge going into turn number 1. Hackney gets away well. Collins settles into third, trying to see if he can peek to the inside of Massey.
This is the first time, usually we see a battle for second, Brew. Brayson Collins with a nice restart. He's going to be right to the tail of Jamie Massey. Meanwhile, there's a battle, though, for about the top 4. Here's Dominic Howe in the 867 lurking to the bottom. He gets a spot over Christian Visconti. The question is, how long can it last? A bit of a bump to the wall back to turn 1, but they maintain themselves straight. And a nice group of cars here battling from about 6 on back. They're almost 3 wide here where Jay Mulder sits.
Rubbins Racing and Dominic Howe has moved his way up into that 4th spot. So how about that? As for early momentum, we see the 59 of Brooks, who we saw spin at the end of his heat, working his way into the top 5. But we have another caution out on the speedway, and it looks to have happened a little bit further back on the racetrack. It may have been Brooks, actually, just as I may have mentioned him. So commentators curse potentially.
We saw him on the bottom of the racetrack fighting with Dominic Howe, so I think he may have done a quick loop around. Mentioning how tough the apron is to really get around here at Bristol Dirt, especially with these cars. I think that might have been the situation caused for the 59. We'll see exactly if that was the case. Take a look at our replay, and this was rocking the bottom side. There's Dominic Howe up ahead of the road, that white and light blue car. The 59, that dark blue and black car. That's Christian Visconti up top in the 80. 59 dives it into the bottom, and there it is. That transition gets that 59, and a quick loop around. No hits with anybody else, and that's a caution.
Yeah, the person who got the worst end out of that was that entry cone.
I think he was probably the victim out of this. Look at small ding there. He ends up sideways, maybe a broken base, I guess, for the cone. I think luckily enough, the 59 did not hit the pit road attenuators. The barrels right there. He stopped just in time before he could even get close to it. But luckily enough, again, just a similar incident where we see a driver go around, bare contact or no contact, and the good news for Calvin Brooks, he'll be able to continue on. One thing, though, I think to note, Francisco, that will possibly be different is the fact that we have a 75-lap feature, and these legend cars have a unique situation with the fuel. I don't believe we're going to see anyone down pit road for necessary service, but should we see it, I don't believe it'll be too unexpected, especially if the leaders end up going down or anybody else decides to make a different call. But we're already heading to the halfway mark of this race, so I don't think there's much to be concerned about in fuel. And I think for Keith Hackney and Jamie Massey, Francisco, they like to see what's going on. They like to see the fact that there's so many yellows because it gets to bunch the field up, keep the field frozen, and Hackney gets to keep his lead.
And as you mentioned, fuel, the best thing that could happen with this is that everyone can save fuel. So it slowly starts to eliminate any possibility of having to make a pit stop if they have to. So they get to save fuel, and that's just less problems that they have to worry about. And I'm not sure if we're on 1 to green yet or not, as the field is a little bit stretched here, but I think we are coming to the 1 to green this time. We'll see how this restart goes for Hackney, who's been able to do. He had a little bit of a slip on one of those restarts and was fighting Massey all the way through 1 and 2, but he was able to do a better job of it the last time. We'll have to see if Massey can make a little bit of a better attempt on the acceleration through the gas and going up the gears as they work their way to 1 and 2 to see if he can maybe challenge the 009. If not, Brayson Collins, as we saw in that last restart, may pose a challenge for that 2nd spot.
And Brayson Collins had a fantastic restart that last time by, but as they work double file once more, it's going to be curious to know whether the 2 of Jamie Massey can get an equalized or a better start, put himself right alongside the 009 and have a shot to take over this feature lead. Coming to lap number 31 of 75, close to our halfway mark. Pace truck is down. A good start by Jamie Massey to the outside. We're back under green from Bristol.
Massey able to hang around that outside. He's trying to pin him down there, but it's not going to work. Hackney able to keep the lead. Collins trying to hold on to the 3rd spot, but we saw right there, Massey was able to do a good job and try to stay around that outside, but it just didn't work. And look at him get so close to the rear bumper of Hackney, but unable to do anything with it. Fortunately, he's got a long way to go before the end of the night, but right there you see the 009 sideways, but never mind. Once again, the caution flag waves once more as we have a car on its side down the banking.
That is Brent Gummo on his side and went pretty much sailing back to the inside wall as he had contact with, I believe it may have been, I think Calvin Brooks was part of it as well. Brady Cox may have suffered some damage from this also. We'll take a replay and see exactly where this began. I heard some of the contact near the rear of the field. And of course, I think in this situation, Francisco, as we take a look at the replay, this is probably the situation to develop that kind of flip. All these drivers in a large pack. I think there may have been contact up the road. Actually, there was. Wow. And the 12 of Gummo just got in the outside wall trying to get away from all of it. It was a car that got put in the wall up the road. And the 12 hits him, goes up to the wall. Has a tough time as he goes pretty much flipping.
You know, I would like to see the onboard of that, because I think he may have hit right when that safer barrier extends out. Because remember, this is dirt laid on top of the Bristol track, and I believe he hit right when the safer barrier begins to stick out, and it may have been a little bit of a glitch there, and that's what sent him flipping. Right here you see regular concrete wall, and right there, yeah, he hit that right where the safer barrier would stick out.
Well, at least the safer barrier is not here on the dirt side, but nonetheless, he ends up hitting the wall. We saw it a little bit earlier where even just smacking that wall, the wheel gets crept up, and then it just goes right over and flips that car around measly. And for Brent Gummo, it was not fairly fun to be on his side there, because now you have to take a tow, and you will have to spend a lot of time down pit road. Indeed, he's already a couple laps down, and that's one of the things that happens at these short tracks like Bristol Motor Speedway, where you can go down pit road for incident or for damage control or for even service. If you stay there too long, you can get put multiple laps down. That's not a fun sight to see, especially moving forward. And already have mostly a couple drivers under the lead lap. That is 18th on back. Sean Garuz, the first driver, 1 lap down. We saw him also getting into that incident with Brady Cox. And Cox is going to be the first one out of pit road. Last driver on the lead lap that is going down pit road now will be the 0-2 of Josh Patterson. So we do have still 21, or I'd say 23 drivers still on the racetrack, but technically 17 run under the lead lap as Keith Hackney continues to lead.
Yeah, we're almost halfway into this race already, Kenneth, and I believe we've had 6 caution flags, so unfortunately not too much action under green flag, which has not resulted in too many passing going on, but it still has been a solid race when we have gotten those green flag laps. Let's just hope that this second half of the race can be a little bit cleaner and we're able to get a good bit of action.
All right, well, we'll have ourselves refreshed and ready to go for the next restart here for the Bristol Dirt Nationals. Keith Hackney and Jamie Massey, not an unfamiliar front row by the time we started this race, but it will be occupied in the second row behind them by Dominic Howe and Brayson Collins. Dominic Howe has made a nice move up to the front. We'll see what he can do on this next one. Christian Visconti lines up the top 5 with Blue Jay, Jay Mulder, Howie Briss, Ryan Martin, Nolan Cooper, and Nestor Erlins, the Finnish driver, rounding out your top 10. Mulder also along with Nestor Erlins, one of the drivers internationally here, one from Calgary, Canada. He will line up at least at that third row. A very slow start, though, by the leaders. A bit of a bump by Brayson Collins. Nonetheless, we're back under green. And again, they run side by side for the front position. But a spin by Keith Hackney, a hit by Brayson Collins. Caution waves, and we have our first lead change all night long. A small but detrimental mistake by the 009 of Keith Hackney. Calhoun, Georgia's finest. Hit the apron, like we said, Francisco, and goes around. And now he's pretty much put all the way in the back of the field for the first time tonight.
And you can see that coming on the last restart. There was trouble with that 009. He tried to go as far down on the racetrack as he possibly could, and by Massey trying to squeeze him, and I think he sort of anticipated the same thing to happen here, and he went down there all by himself, trying to stay away from him as they were side by side, but went too far low, and around he went, and Brayson Collins nowhere to go.
And again, you'll take a look at it as they headed back to turn 1 all the way to the bottom, and you saw even the 2 of Massey was pinching him just a little bit, but not too much to the point where they were making contact, just trying to force him to be a little bit slower on the bottom. And then the 009 just gets a little bit too much, grabs that transition, and then his car gets spun around. Collins, though, with a big hit. He doesn't lose as many positions, though, but even then, the 5 with some damage is right on board here. Big hit there. It's a snack to the inside wall. I think that car might be fairly damaged. He'll have to probably go down pit road. You see some of the dents there on his car. May just be one to be concerned about, but Jamie Massey, I guess, to the race lead for the first time tonight.
Who's second? Dominic Howe.
And Dominic Howe, we talked about his move to the front and the way he's gone through the field. He's been +8 ever since the start of this one. Started in the edge of the top 10 and now runs in second with a proper chance to go up front. I think nice running by the driver of the 867. We've seen Dominic Howe in a handful of series we've covered, Francisco, mostly on the asphalt side. We don't usually see him on the dirt side. So I guess this is cool to see a driver that we usually see on one discipline go to another and have some fun and also succeed as well. And Brayson Collins, though, although with the damage, he does not go down pit road. He still lines up the top 3. Jay Mulder, Christian Visconti to the top 5. And a couple others to know. How about Joe Bergie? Started all the way in the rear of this field. He went from 19th in this race. We saw him, I believe, start on pit road. And he's, with all the chaos that's unfolded tonight, he's made his way into the top 10 with a chance to gain more positions. I think that's probably at least contender, if not the one or the winner so far, the Hard Charger Award.
Yeah, I think right now of the people who are still on this racetrack, he may have gained the most spots. We mentioned Dominic Howe. He gained 8, with Joe Bergie gaining about 10 spots. So I don't think Howe can gain more spots than Bergie does, or if he's able to stay in that position, because he would get a maximum of 9, and Bergie has 10 right now. So we'll have to see if anyone else puts on a challenge for that Hard Charger Award. But right now, a good contender to receive that bonus will be Joe Bergie. And who's to tell if he can't gain any more spots with the way this race has played out, Kenneth? But lights are out on the pace truck, and we're half a lap away from green. AC Collins right there struggling for a little bit of straight line speed, and that comes out to that engine damage he may have sustained under that wreck that he was involved with, the 009. And right now you see Jay Mulder trying to rip the top, see if he can move his way into the top 3 positions. Remember, the big payout is for the first position, but the top 3 do get prize money at the end of the night. So even if you don't get the win, a top 3 is still going to be crucial for these guys if they do want to receive some cash prizes in 30 laps time. Look at that. And look how much more of that dark dirt they have to go before they reach the wall. So they can run up there, and for it not to be too slick for a little bit longer before they get all the way up to the upper edge of the cushion that they're going to start building up there, Kenneth. And right now we're under a pretty decent run. There you see Joe Bergie right well inside the top 10. I believe he's moved his way into the 8th spot behind Brayson Collins. So Bergie doing a solid job, able to continue gaining spots. But right now, another caution and waving. Most likely an incident a little bit further back. I'm not sure who it may involve. Potentially Josh Patterson, and that 61 right there we saw bouncing off the wall. I was a bit confused what happened there. I know he had gone around a little bit earlier, but I thought he was in the garage. I guess not, but You see, he tried to tow before the caution was called, but a little too late right there. And all by himself, really, on this racetrack, well behind anybody on the racetrack for position. So a bit puzzled, but around he goes, bringing out the caution.
I think that may have been a little bit better than flipping over and over like he did earlier in this race, but he goes straight to the garage once more, and he's able to tow. Unfortunate end for the night, as for now, from the driver of the number 56, Benjamin Richards, who had a promising start in the heat. Looked like it was going to be fun to watch him on the track, and just a tough break here for this race. Well, we are already now down to our final 24 laps, and things have changed somewhat dramatically, Francisco. We saw the lead change hands. Jamie Massey now in control as Keith Hackney has to fight in the Hornet's Nest to come back up here. And there's not as many laps left to count down before we get to the end, especially with the short distance Bristol has. So is there any way that we could see anybody start to pick up the intensity? Do they start to get more aggressive now that the track has changed? They've had a couple laps here with these cars, and now they can kind of push to the end for those 50 bucks?
I mean, as the night goes, these drivers are going to start learning the track more and more. You learn through the heats, you learn through practice, and you learn through qualifying. You learn continuously. You never stop learning. But usually in a race, there's specific conditions that are present that you can't simulate. So these guys are learning the racetrack, learning what direction it's going in, are starting to apply what they're learning through these 52 laps that they've completed, and are going to use those notes that they've collected in order to decide what they have to do in order to give themselves the best shot to win in about 28 laps from now.
Well, if there's anything that we got shown throughout the first 53 laps, is that even a small mistake by anyone in this field can set you in a myriad of trouble. We saw it with the 009 of Keith Hackney. He's back to 18th, and he has yet to really gain much position after. And we're still going to be running under the yellow flag. Lights are still on. They're going to come off, I believe, this time from the pace truck. So we should be expecting green flag racing fairly soon. Will we see double file action? Indeed, we will. Race control will deem it as such. So it will be Jamie Massey, Dominic Howe, your first row. Jay Mulder, Christian Visconti, your second, followed by Howie Briss, Ryan Martin. First time we see those two kind of step into the top 5 tonight. Brayson Collins with some damage in 7th. Joe Bergie in 8th. Nolan Cooper in 9th. And Nuhin Flores in the 888 will cap off your top 10. So here we go, off turn 3 and 4. A bit of contact between the top 2 leaders with about 21 laps to go. We'll see if the intensity starts to ramp up. Green flag comes out, and a good start by Jamie Massey as they head back to turn 1.
Green flag back out, and once again, racing for position. Massey has no challenge right now. He does up to the inside, but Howe unable to make it stick. And look at Visconti trying to look away around. Look out for Christian Visconti, who did win his heat race, and right now trying to see if he can find his way into the 2nd spot. Remember how he won that heat. It's not out of the possibility that he can win in the same way tonight, as we saw a little bit of smoke further in the back, and I think someone will stop on the back on the turn 4, and indeed they were, because the caution is waving once more.
And it is Brent Gummo again in an incident, the number 12 around on the bottom. Thought we saw one car go around. There's Henry Clappert as well. I'm not sure whether he was involved too, but he's got a lot of damage to his Dirt Legend car. You see a lot of the fenders just ripped off completely. We'll try to see exactly where this had began. Indeed, it did involve both of these drivers. And from looking at the rear end camera of Dominic Howe, we saw this green and black number 34 get out of shape. And it was right there that his car almost seemingly went around, went back up into traffic right there, collected the 6 machine of Nestor Erlins. I believe Ben Porsche got a little bit of it, and then Brent Gummo gets probably the worst. He goes all the way around. Let's take a look at here. Field packs in a big flip by the 34 of Clapper.
Yeah, violent crash on the front straightaway, and most of the crashes that we've seen here tonight have happened towards this back end of the field, unfortunately. And it's been a lot of a lot of laps have been running up behind the pace truck, and I'm just hoping that for the final portion of this race, when the money's on the line, that we're able to have a little bit more green flag action once it's all getting ready to settle out.
Well, hopefully we can settle ourselves into a somewhat decent green flag run. I believe our longest could be about, I'd say, 8 to 10 laps. That was one of our longest. before we get a yellow flag. A lot of this has been riddled with these cautions, and most of them for single car incidents, so a lot with what iRacing is deeming as a yellow. Most of it seems to be either single car or some multi-car, some of them actually deeming yellows, but some of them just being quick spins that race control, if it's on the racing surface here at Bristol, it counts as a yellow and will bring the field to at least a slower pace than they were this entire event. A lot of these drivers, I guess, just holding on to their patience levels for the end of this race. We saw Dominic Howe trying to make the bottom work, but it is seemingly starting to sizzle out of this conversation because most of the drivers who use the bottom, they don't necessarily carry a lot more speed through there. And in complete contrast to what we saw, Francisco, to start tonight, the bottom side seems to be a lot slicker, it's harder to maintain, and you don't get a run off the corners. So I think everybody now, like we saw in that last restart, they want to hold the top, hold the top, hold the top, go straight to the cushion.
And that's characteristic of most dirt tracks, but at Bristol Dirt, with the NASCAR Cup machines and with all of the dirt series that ran there in the month of March and April, we saw that the bottom was definitely preferred line. We've heard guys also mention that it's harder to run down there and it's slicker, but those who have the capability of running it like that usually are able to gain the most lap time, even compared to somebody who's running the top. So I'm interested as to like what are the track conditions are in order that are making the top be more preferred line. But I know that from what I've seen, the inside right around that apron, not quite there, but just above it, has been the preferred line in many of the actual Bristol races.
Well, we do have the conditions based off from May 15th. So we are on iRacing Day with the classic default iRacing time and month, or the month and day for this at least this session. So not much to consider apart from maybe a little bit hotter in the track temp. I think we saw a little bit lower at 70 in the air temp last night for the Zero Cup Series All-Star race. It was 80 degrees, and we're sure that has dropped over the course of this evening. Pace truck back down. We'll get a green flag restart with about 14 laps left into the 2021 Bristol Dirt Nationals. Jamie Massey off to a good start. Dominic Howe second. Christian Visconti to your top three as he runs the bottom.
Trying to go to the inside to see if he can gain a spot on Howe, but unable to make it work, as I believe another caution is out. A crash in turns 1 and 2.
That's Nestor Erlin's Finnish driver. Josh Patterson again involved. James East also might have had a part to play here. And as soon as we get the green flag to turn 1, a quick yellow underneath once again. And we'll try to take a look, as I believe it may have been Patterson that began this incident along with James East. Both of these drivers are running in line with each other coming to the restart. So at this point, they're not at the restart yet. They haven't picked up the pace, and by now, this is where they'll start to stamp on the gas. There's Keith Hackney in the 009 up top. And you see Patterson tries to go to the bottom. Seems to be 3 wide for the most part. They seem to be okay to turn 1. And right about here, they both make contact. They merge together. East goes around. Patterson goes sailing up the racetrack. And a big flip by Ben Porsche. Boy, a lot of these drivers in the back have not seen the light of day. A lot of them involved in these incidents. And many of them, they've been innocently or pretty much destroyed. And Nestor Erlin's again caught up.
Yeah, it's been a lot of unfortunate circumstances for the back half of the field here tonight. The 61 once again going airborne. Probably not the first time he's done so tonight. And this race has been riddled with yellows, and a couple of guys have been involved in multiple of them. And for the most part, not of their own doing. So it's been trouble for some, good for others. And for one of them who's been good, it's been for Massey, who's led for this second half of the race, if you rather, once he took the lead from a spinning... what I forgot who it was, but I believe it was the 009 who he took the lead from when he spun on the apron. So it's been good for Massey here tonight to this point, and he's got 10 laps before the end of this race to try and capture $50.
Well, he still definitely has a challenge, so it's not out of the question either. But with the way Massey has been controlling these restarts, you got to think if we keep getting yellows, that Massey will probably be in the best shape than everybody else unless he makes a dire mistake, which we saw at a Hackney as a leader, so we could see it out of Jamie Massey as a race leader, but as for now, we haven't seen it just yet. But what a nice move to second that Christian Visconti made, and we saw him running well within the heats, and he ends up here back in second. He got by Dominic Howe on the bottom, so a nice shuffle to this position, and he'll most likely be on the outside on this restart. So he has a nice chance with 9 laps to go to get himself $50 as well, get a win of his own credit if he can pull it off. We've only seen top 2 get close together whenever Massey could line his restarts up with Keith Hackney, but we haven't seen anybody do so with Massey. So we'll just have to find out where things stand as we move forward. We should get 1 to green this time by, so lights should be out on the iRacing official pace truck. We will get our restart with just under 10 laps to go. We'll have a single file start, so I think this will be better for Massey on the long run. But the question is, can they last long enough on a run to get to the checkered flag? So Massey, go ahead.
Flag. I think we're coming to the green flag here, Kenneth. The lights are on that pace truck, and if this does go green at the end, it's going to be tough for anyone to get around that too. But Christian Visconti, we saw he was able to get the win in the heat, and there goes the 2 stepping on the gas and getting himself a pretty decent lead as we're back under green.
Quick start for Jamie Massey, again able to surge ahead of second on back. A nice cluster from about second to fourth. A bit of a bump by Dominic Howe to put Christian Visconti to the wall, but they maintain themselves straight, but they crash behind. Bergie involved, Dominic Howe around. Collins gets a piece of it as well, and a large pileup between many of the front runners. And Dominic Howe getting the absolute worst. Joe Bergie, the biggest mover tonight, gets involved, gets pushed back to 14th. And again, another quick yellow with about 6 laps left in this race.
And it would not surprise me if this race goes into overtime, but you see the damage on that 867, and this restart sort of stacked up right here with Visconti sliding up a little bit right there. Then there's a bump out of those 2, and right here, contact between each other, everyone trying to stay off one another, and while he was sideways, he gets into Bergie, and you see them just on the racetrack, and it's just hard to avoid these cars. A couple cars further in the back unable to avoid them, and we saw one car come in tumbling as well. I believe right here they're going to come into fray, and it's at 26.
That is Brady Cox, the 76 machine, as he went around. And you take a look here, Dominic Howe goes right up the racetrack. And that's a bit of contact there from Visconti. He tried to save it to the right and then just overcorrected. His car just sailed up the track and then gets into Joe Bergie in the 83. You see him gets loose and bam, right into the wall he goes. About to his side, almost goes completely over and around. And then there's Brady Cox with an extra tap and adds himself to the victim list here on this caution. It's such a tough break for one of the top 3 runners, and Joe Bergie, the biggest mover all night. Dominic Howe, I believe, the second biggest mover here. Both of them making nice charges up to the front, and they have to do that work all over again. But how about the driver of the 009 with a good amount of time left in this race? He moved from 18th with that spin in front of the field all the way to the latter half of the top 10. So I guess that time and the amount of laps that happened between the incident and now has given the 009 a chance to put himself back in contention.
He certainly worked his way back up, and it's not been easy, especially given the amount of cautions. But you have to give Keith Hackney credit for being able to try and dig himself out of that hole that he put himself in. So if he's able to come out of this race with a top 10, considering what happened to him midway, I think he'll take it. But with what could be potentially the final restart, Kenneth, I don't want to say it will be because tonight has not given me any reason to say so. But if this is the final restart, what does anyone do to try and get by the 2 of Massey?
You probably have to push the issue if you're anybody like Visconti, Briss, Martin, Cooper, anyone either further behind. You have to really pressure Massey on the restart because like we've seen, especially when it goes single file, Massey's really just able to stamp on the throttle earlier than everybody else, get a nice jump, and then lead the rest of the race while everybody second on back has to fight for position. And that's what you don't want to see if you're these guys in the second pack. You don't want Massey pulling away while you fight for second. Yes, you will get a cash prize for finishing in the top 3, but you definitely want all of it. You want that top position. You want to be up in front. You want to be there at the end with the checkered flag in hand. So if you're anybody like Visconti, Briss, or anyone behind, you have to really nail this restart with about 3 laps left to go if you want to be considered a winner here in this 2021 Bristol Dirt Nationals. And speaking of which, we're back to a restart. Jamie Massey not with as good of a start as we expected. Visconti able to hold through, coming to 2 laps ago. You're from Bristol.
Is it the final 2 laps though? But Visconti with a solid run through 1 and 2. He's going to work his way to the rear bumper of that number 2 as we're working our way to the white flag. Brisk there, and you see Massey go to the bottom of the racetrack. That's going to potentially give a chance to Visconti going into 1. He's going to have a run here, Kenneth. White flag.
White flag, and the outside goes to Christian Visconti. How about Howie Briss in the 97? Put him into this group of cars as well. This will be the final opportunity for Visconti or anyone to turn 3 and 4. Massey defending down low, Visconti up top, and off turn 4. The driver who comes up from first on the pole will win the showstopper. Jamie Massey, your winner at Bristol Dirt.
You saw the pressure was getting to him. He had to change his line, and fortunately, that's exactly what won him this race. Just he was able to make the bottom work when it mattered most, Kenneth, and that's where the speed was. Despite it being slicker, the speed was there, and he was able to take advantage of it and come away with the win. But Visconti with a solid effort in the second. Briss taking away the final position in the top 3 and taking away those points. But we'll shortly get word on who our Hard Charger Award winner is.
And what a fantastic performance by Jamie Massey as he burns it down in the dirt in front of the virtual fans. Fantastic way to end it all, to lead this race, to lead the most laps. Led 41 en route to victory. He started in first. He ends up in the exact same place. Massey to victory lane. Christian Visconti will be second. Howie Briss will be third. And what a way to end it here at Bristol, or for the Dirt Nationals, in a way that we probably didn't expect it to be here whatsoever. We'll take a moment to look at your full field results before we get to driver interviews. And of course, Jamie Massey, your winner after 75 grueling laps at Bristol Dirt. Christian Visconti, though, behind him with a last lap charge. Howie Briss will end up in the top 3, with Keith Hackney going from a first place spin to the rear of the field, moves his way up to 4th on that final restart. Ryan Martin will cap off the top 5, with Brayson Collins, the outlaw, to be 6th. Calvin Brooks will be 7th. Nolan Cooper, 8th. 9th will belong to the Canadian Jay Mulder, and Nehwin Flores in the AAA will result in the top 10 here tonight.
And going on through the rest of the field that we had here tonight, Josh Patterson coming away with 11th. Joe Bergie, who had started deep in the field and was into the top 5 positions late, will come away 12th, with Dominic Howe, a car who was involved in that same incident, in 13th. Henry Clapper, with all the struggles he had, comes away 14th. Nestor Erlins, who was running up front earlier in the event, comes away with a top 15 finish, and he'll be glad this one's over. It's almost 3:30 in the morning in his time. Brent Gummo, who struggled all night, has tumbled end over end multiple times, will finish 16th, 6 laps down. Brady Cox in 17th. James East will come away in 18th. Ben Porsche, who was another driver we saw tumble a lot, will finish in the 19th position, with Sean Guru finishing in the 20th position. And I believe we have a couple more cars left. And there you see the 102 of Joshua Pack will finish in 21st. Paul Granada, I believe, who disconnected early on, will finish 22nd, with Aaron Trotter 23rd. Benjamin Richards will come away in the 24th position, and rounding out the field is the 30 of Tyler Watts in 25th.
Those are all the drivers to finish here from Bristol Motor Speedway, but all eyes lay on the driver who gets it done at the end of 75 laps, the one who gets away to win it all, taking the checkered flag, ending up in victory lane, is the number 2, the showstopper, Jamie Massey. We'll bring in Jamie from victory lane here at Bristol. And Jamie, that was a race I think that you put on. I think the showstopper nickname definitely comes to play a relation right here with your performance tonight. You took the lead away after a small but rare mistake by Keith Hackney as you both were fighting for the top position, and then all of a sudden he ends up spinning. You take over the lead. You lead 41 laps en route to victory. Walk us through how you were able to do it all.
Yeah, man, he's my teammate. I'd have much rather raced it out with him and seen what we had. We were getting good restarts on there, and I think what was the end result of him spinning is that he knew that he had to time that bottom really perfect, and for me not to clear him, and I think that's what happened. And I really hate that for him, because he was fast all night long, and it is what it is, man. It's part of racing. It sucks though.
Well, nonetheless, it was certainly a fantastic battle, but I think something also to behold is the fact this combo here, the Legends Dirt cars with the Bristol Dirt Motor Speedway in this kind of configuration. For you, was that any sort of a challenge? How fun was it for you on the track in this exhibition race? Well, I mean, you're probably going to be a little bit happier knowing you have $50 in the bank now for this win, but how fun was it for you on the racetrack with this kind of spectacular combo that we had?
Man, it was a lot of fun. I wish, like I said, I'd like to had a little more green flags. I don't run these cars ever, so I mean, if we do run them, it must be for money. So, but we never run them, so it felt pretty good to come in there. My whole team was 1, 2, 3 in qualifying, and I felt like we were fast all night long, and just a good showing for us, and had a lot of fun, man. It's always good to win $50.
Certainly a lot of optimism coming your way on this win, especially in that dominating fashion. But before we let you go, Jamie, and before we let you go celebrate here, Bristol, with that $50 in the pocket, do you have anybody you want to thank, any teams, sponsors, or anybody else that makes it happen for you?
Yes, sir. I want to thank Team No Love. Also, we just teamed up with Rocket Racing Setups, Small Change Designs, Lizard Lip Pit Lights, Renegade Race Fuels, Rage Designs, Alpha Race Designs, and Cabinets by Keith. And that'll be it, man. Thank y'all for broadcasting, and thank these guys for putting this race on.
Well, it was a lot of fun watching you and everybody else on track here tonight. Congratulations, Jamie, and hopefully we look forward to seeing you in another WORC dirt race. Thank you so much, and congratulations once again.
Thank you, sir.
Jamie Massey, the showstopper, comes away with the checkered flag in the final race, or the final couple of laps to the end of this race, taking away the win here from Bristol Dirt. Behind him, though, a solid charge for Kristen Visconti. Started in third, ended up in second, and the driver of that 80 Legend car will now hold a place in the top three. Will also get a prize for his own right in this race. So bring him in. And Christian, I think this race has certainly settled down to a lot of yellows, a lot of restarts, a lot of nailing of those restarts. But in the final laps, for you, what more did you feel you needed there to get past Jamie Massey to get the checkered flag?
You know, I honestly feel like we just needed more laps. I felt like I might have been able to make the top work a little better than him, possibly. He was kind of, I think he was running a bit lower than me, and he was kind of dipping from top to bottom. I was getting some runs off the corner, but I really just needed a couple more laps to try and, make a run on him, I think.
Well, nonetheless, it was a very strong run here at Bristol, and I asked it to Jamie Massey about this kind of combo. With the way things were in the midst of traffic, how was that for you as a challenge behind the wheel? Because I know that these cars can kind of get easy, but with the way this track changes with the dirt, it certainly is a little more of a handful, and also with the way that you're posed in traffic. How was that for you as an experienced side?
Oh, it was certainly a challenge because, the bottom and the top were kind of working, especially towards the middle of the race. They were kind of even, so it was definitely hard to make up some ground, but it was honestly, a really fun race. Probably some of the most fun I've had on iRacing, so.
Well, it certainly was a lot of fun. I reckon in the race car, and of course here up in the booth, had a lot of fun covering this race. But Christian, I know that you're going away with also some money of your own, finishing in second. So for you, not only you don't come away with the win, but you do come away with some cash prizes. What does this say about maybe potentially future WORC exhibition races?
I'd certainly hope for, kind of got to work some things out, but I hope for future WORC races we can certainly keep, the purses going, the prize money. And we have a lot of fun stuff planned. I know that for a fact, so make sure you guys stay tuned.
Well, we certainly hope to see you there. Christian, before we let you go, is there anybody else you'd just like to give love and shout-outs to? Any teams, sponsors, or anybody else before we finish at least this interview here for a second that makes it happen for you?
Thank you guys for broadcasting, Brayson Collins, and all the admins for, myself included, I guess, for hosting it. I believe Paul Granada and his Twitch, iRacer95, and Josh Patterson and JP Designs for, and all the work they've done for WORC in the past and what they'll do in the future. So shout out to them.
We certainly thank you, Christian, for taking the time with us, and congratulations on your second place finish here from Bristol. We look forward to seeing you in more WORC events down the line.
All right, thank you, guys.
Christian Visconti, the driver out of Connecticut, will take his run to second at the end of it all. And then we'll move to the final driver in the top three. That will be the 97 of Howie Briss. Started in 5th, ends up in 3rd with a possible chance to win this race. Nonetheless, ends up in that podium spot. We'll bring in trackside with Howie Briss. And Howie, this race, I think for many, was a different challenge. It certainly was a lot of fun. There were a lot of yellows. And for you, you were kind of mired in the top 5 where there were a good amount of battles on restarts. Walk us through how that was for you and whether how much of a challenge that was for you behind the wheel, knowing you had to fend a lot of great drivers off.
Yeah, I think top was just key. If you were on the bottom, you were pretty much done. Because if you just went to the bottom, you would just be hung out to dry. That's why you kind of saw me there just kind of fight up towards the top. People bumping me because they were just, oh my gosh, they were just having so strong runs. But then early in the run, like at the beginning of the race, the bottom came in, but it just went away. So, yeah, difficult challenge. So.
Certainly was a difficult challenge, I think, for a lot of drivers, including yourself. But I can say that this setup, at least with the car track combo, certainly brought a lot of fun with the way that you have to kind of wheel these cars. Not as much power on these legend cars at a very big track in comparison, Bristol Dirt. If you can say that you've had maybe any experience with this car, I know a lot of people don't, but for you, how was it expectation-wise going into this versus how it all resulted in?
Well, first off, I wasn't expecting too much yellows, but no, I kind of had a blast with all the short runs that we had, but still, I had a blast. Top 3, I'll take the money. So, but I have had experience here. Did win A-Class Open here, so I do have experience in these cars and on this track. So, definitely was fun.
Certainly was a lot of fun, and you get to be part of that group that gets the cash prizes out of it, so I think that can add a bigger smile to your face along with many others. But before we let you go, Howie, is there anybody you'd like to thank for making this all possible? Any teams, sponsors, or anybody else you'd just like to give the love and shout-outs to for tonight?
I don't have any sponsors, but I got some people to thank. Mom, Em, she just graduated from college. This is probably big for her, so seeing me win. Grandmother and granddad upstairs. Joe Thomas, he's out racing, but he'll probably see this after he's done. I don't know who else to thank. Everybody, all my friends, they support me. And this is probably my first ever payday win, I should say. So this is actually pretty good.
Well, it certainly was a lot of fun watching you on the track, and we look forward to seeing you possibly within more WORC events down the future. Congratulations on your 3rd place finish, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward. Thank you, Howie.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Howie Briss comes home in P3, the final driver out of the podium spots here from Bristol Dirt. Before we get to the final driver of our interview section and a post-race coverage and the hardest charger of the entire night by far, 23rd position to 8th for the 65 of Nolan Cooper. And Nolan, we're trackside with you now, and I think this is the pretty much the outlier, the elephant in the room, the biggest mover, the hardest charger going back from 23rd to start this race in lap number 1 to lap 75 and PA just in the top 10. Walk us through how you were able to do this here tonight.
Yeah, the car felt good from the start. It just seems like it just hooked up from lap 1, and we got a lucky few times. Some wrecks happened. We advanced a couple spots, and all the drivers are pretty courteous tonight. Everyone was given room. We weren't driving too dirty. A couple of altercations with the driver, too, but, it ended up in our favor. I like to thank Slaughter Die Sim Sports for me a good car tonight.
Definitely was a good car that it brings you from 23rd all the way to 8th. And I asked a little bit earlier, I believe, to the 3rd place finisher here tonight, the 97 Howie Briss, the way that some drivers were in the midst of a hornet's nest and a large pack. And I think for you, it was probably an exemplary effort where you were kind of in the middle of it all, especially on restarts when everybody was packed in. Did the anxiety start to build up a little bit as you were kind of in that group, knowing that a lot of yellows were coming out from the rear of the field, and especially with the way drivers were practically 2 and 3 wide going into every corner?
Yeah, it's definitely scary because I would always be checking my mirror, and I'd always be watching the car in front of me to see what would happen. And, you would have people throwing slide jobs on your inside, and you'd have to worry about basically 4 or 5 cars at all times that could possibly end your race, and it definitely gets scary when you're in the mid-pack, and, I feel like as a driver, it's going to take a stronger driver to be able to push their way through a hornet's nest, like you said.
I think that the strength came over to you, a strong effort to finish this one out. and end up in the top 10. And before we let you go, Nolan, for the Hard Charger Award tonight, is there anybody you just like to give the love and shout outs to and a thanks for making this happen? Any teams, sponsors, or pretty much anyone you just like to mention here tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Slider Dice Sim Sports, Caleb Nickel, Joey Robinson, and Brendan Sturr.
All right, well, Nolan, we congratulate you on your hard charging award-winning effort, 23rd to 8th. That's something I couldn't do in the sim, especially I'd be scared out of my mind in the middle of that. But congratulations on your effort tonight, Nolan, and hopefully we look forward to seeing you for more WORC exhibition races moving forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Nolan Cooper is your final driver interview. He is your hard charger of the evening. Well, no Francisco here, as he had to exit early, but nonetheless, some final thoughts after we wrap our broadcast from the Bristol Dirt Speedway, Bristol Dirt config here for the Bristol Dirt Nationals for the WORC series. And certainly a lot of fun. I mean, going into this race, not many expectations other than pack racing. A lot of full throttle action, and like a lot of drivers said, you can make a lot of lines work, and it certainly brought out a lot of the excitement. There sure was a lot of chaos, there was a lot of contact, but at the end of it all, we saw some fantastic racing, and much like the WORC Chili Bowl Nationals, we saw sort of the same trend. Lots of yellows, but also sort of a trade-off in a lot of the exciting racing we saw with the drivers up front. Lots of moves for position, lots of sliders out in the bottom, lots of different grooves being utilized, and I think here at Bristol, we can certainly say the same. Gotta give a big shout out to everybody that makes things happen at WORC and all the people that reached out. Of course, Brayson Collins, Josh Patterson, Paul Granada, the owners of the league, Christian Visconti, Henry Clappert are part of the admin group and the assistants that make things possible as well. Aaron Griffin, Ethan Workman, Jay Mulder, and Joe Bergie. And from all of us here at the KBueno Racing Network, from my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacallao, and Charlie Baier at the KBRN Networks as well, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying so long and good night from the Bristol Motor Speedway. We'll hopefully see you next time around, maybe for another WORC event. We'll have to find out. Jamie Massey, congratulations, the winner here tonight.